The most remarkable rise we've seen from a football club in decades has been the story of Luton Town. They went from non-league to the Premier League in under 10 years after winning the Championship playoff final in 2023. It's a rise which may never be matched for some time. But there has been a very similar rise, and it involves the team Luton beat in that playoff final. Coventry City went from League 2 to the edge of the Premier League in 5 years, and Cov faced plenty of obstacles along the way. However, the biggest difference between their rise and Luton's rise is that everyone has heard about Luton. Coventry don't seem to get the same credit. So that's what we're talking about today. I'm Ryan Dilks from the second tier, and today we're looking at Coventry City's fall and rise, why it's arguably more impressive than Luton's, why it should be talked about more, and whether they could actually become a Premier League side in 2025. The story begins at the end of 2007, with Coventry still in the Championship. It's been a while since they had much to shout about though. At that point, the last time they finished in the top 6 of any league was in 1970. Now you can complain about your club being boring, but that is taking it to a whole new extreme. Despite that though, Coventry were and still are a big club. They had been in the top flight of English football from 1967 all the way until their relegation from the Premier League in 2001. And in their attempts to get back to the Premier League, they spent a lot of money with very little success. This led to Coventry being in a lot of debt, and it looked as if they could be going into administration. That was until a hedge fund called Sisu took them over. They're going to feature quite a lot in this video, so just remember that name. The new chairman, Ray Ranson, came in and declared, "I want to see us promoted as soon as possible. This is a Premiership club, and this is why I'm here." And Ray clearly knew what he was doing, because over the next 4 seasons, the highest Coventry finished was 17th. Ransom resigned in 2011, and the club announced a new board which they rather boldly called the best board ever. Think of the Avengers if they were all wearing suits and stank of incompetence, because Coventry would be relegated the following season, and this is where the problems really started. In 2012, the owners of Coventry Stadium, the Ricoh Arena, served third-party debtor orders on the club. This basically meant that they would get any money the club was owed from third parties, and it's because Coventry were behind in their rent. In March 2013, things got even worse when the Ricoh Arena owners applied for an administration order at the High Court after failing to reach an agreement over more than £1.3 million in unpaid rent. This led to Coventry entering administration. Now, administration is obviously bad, but this move meant the club's agreement to use the stadium had effectively ended, and Coventry had 3 home games left with nowhere to play them. But fortunately, a deal was agreed so that they could carry on playing at the Ricoh for the last few games. Sisu would get Coventry out of administration, but the damage had already been done and was growing substantially. They were deducted 10 points at the end of the 2012-13 season and be deducted another 10 the following season. Possibly worst of all though is that they had no bloody stadium. So what did Sisu do? Did they organise for them to play games at a smaller stadium in Coventry? Did they come up with an agreement with the owners of the Ricoh Arena? No, they played their home games in Northampton, 38 miles away. Imagine having to do a 76-mile round trip just to see your team play at home. Unsurprisingly, fans weren't happy and it led to protests. Attendances were also, unsurprisingly, not great. The average attendance that season was just over 2,000, down from 15,000 2 seasons earlier. In September 2014, things started to turn around for Coventry. Sisu struck a deal for the club to play at the Ricoh Arena again. More than 27,000 fans were there for that first game back, and it looked like it would be the start of a new era. On the pitch, things weren't so great though. Coventry seemed obsessed with bringing in big names who were well past it, including Joe Cole, Stephen Hunt, Marc-Antoine Fortuné and Yakubu. Wait, Yakubu? They would eventually be relegated to League 2 in 2017. But despite the carnage Sisu were inflicting on the club on and off the pitch, they made the single best decision in Coventry's recent history.
There's too many of them!
Mark Robins was reappointed as Coventry manager in March 2017. What followed was instant promotion from League Two. The following season, they finished 8th in League One. It seems like all the torment from the past few years was out the way and the club could finally start getting back to where it belonged. But then, Coventry would be kicked out of the Ricoh Arena once again. The stadium had been taken over by the rugby team Wasps, and that led to a disagreement between them and Sisu. It led to Coventry playing their home games outside of Coventry again, except this time it was 22 miles away at Birmingham City's St Andrews Stadium. Coventry would spend 2 full seasons there. Now, somewhat fortunately, this did happen during the 2 COVID seasons when fans weren't allowed in stadiums, so it didn't affect supporters as much as it could have. And the remarkable thing was, despite playing home games in a different city, Coventry were doing brilliantly on the pitch. They won League One in their first season at St Andrews and would finish 16th in the Championship the following season. Then came another breakthrough, as Coventry agreed a new deal to play at the Ricoh Arena again, although it was now called the Coventry Building Society Arena. Cov finished 12th in the Championship in 2021-22, despite having one of the smallest budgets in the league. And things were finally looking great for Coventry. They gave themselves a new platform to build on, some very exciting young players, and most importantly, a stadium in the city. But then in the 2022-23 season, some familiar problems began to creep back in. Coventry had to abandon their first 3 home games of the season because of the state of the pitch after it was used for rugby during the Commonwealth Games. It led to them winning just one of their first 10 games. To make matters worse, Wasps, the owners of the stadium, went into administration, putting renewed doubt over Coventry's future there. Former Newcastle owner and Sports Direct's very own Mike Ashley bought the stadium from Wasps and gave Coventry an eviction notice. On the pitch, there were problems too. Halfway through the season, 2 important players in Callum O'Hare and Casey Palmer suffered season-ending injuries. It's a lot for a club to handle in one season, right? Well, under Mark Robins, this isn't your average club. Coventry would strike a deal to keep playing at the CBS Arena for another 5 years and end any worries about them having to play home games outside of the city again. In January 2023, we finally were able to say goodbye to Sisu after the club were taken over by local businessman Doug King. And the most ridiculous thing about all this, despite all the problems they had and the aforementioned injuries, Coventry were flying on the pitch. The likes of Victor Gyökeres and Gustavo Hamer were unbelievable for the Sky Blues. They only lost 4 league games in the second half of the season, and even though they were in the relegation zone in October, managed to finish in the playoffs and get to the final before losing on penalties to Luton. The following season they lost Gyökeres and Hamer, and it took a while for them to recover from losing them. Well, that brings us up to now. Could they become a Premier League team this coming season? Well, there's a reason to believe so. Since the new owner Doug King has come in, Coventry have never been in a better place. He cleared the club's debts, and that's meant they've been able to spend big on transfers. Last season saw them spend more than £30 million, and they've already spent big on Jack Redoni this summer. Coventry got better as last season went on as well, and that can be attributed to the several new signings taking time to gel. Now they've done that, you add in the possibility of more signings coming, their squad is looking strong. Possibly the biggest positive of all, though, is the manager, Mark Robins. Despite everything thrown at him, he has continued to take Coventry in the right direction, and in fact last season was the first one where they finished lower in the league than they did the season before. I'll be amazed if that happens again. So don't be surprised if he completes the journey from League 2 to the Premier League this coming season. So there we have it. That's the story of Coventry City's remarkable rise. Does it deserve more coverage? 100%. It does, considering Luton's story was everywhere, even before they got promoted. It seems ridiculous that Coventry don't get talked about more. Is it actually more impressive than Luton's? Yes, Luton came from the National League and nearly went into oblivion themselves on their fall down the leagues. But considering Coventry had to deal with homelessness on multiple occasions, and they've also gone from League 2 to the edge of the Premier League with the same manager, Coventry's rise definitely deserves a lot more respect. Is it actually better than Luton's? I think we'll reserve judgment until we see whether Coventry actually do get to the Premier League. Of course, I'm not having a dig at Luton's story, by the way. I'm just saying it only seems to be in Coventry where Coventry and Mark Robins gets the respect they deserve. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments section below. Make sure you like this video and subscribe for more content like this, as well as our podcast episodes twice a week, 3 times a week when the season is back up and running. But I've been Ryan Dilks, and this has been The Second Tier. A big thank you for watching.